adoption of the agenda. So I'm going to make that motion. Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Brooks Hill, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes from the Special Committee of the Whole, June 6th, 2019. Councillor Charlotte, is there a seconder? Councillor Elliott, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And the Committee of the Whole minutes from June 13th, 2019. I'm going to make that motion. Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Brooks Hill, all those in favor? Councillor Elliott, so Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Elliott, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from the Special Committee of the Whole minutes of June 6, 2019? Seeing none, I'm moving on to the Committee of the Whole minutes from June 13, 2019. Any business? Seeing none, we're going into announcements from the Mayor. So today we have a special announcement, and I'm going to ask Marianne to do that, if she would, please.
Well, good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Well, it's my great pleasure to have a colleague and a very experienced planner who is going to be working on contract with us to kick off our Johnson Heights neighborhood plan. And so we can start initiating the OCP amendment. And I've had the good fortune of working with Kelly Leonard back in 2007. I was only, 21. And we had the good fortune where I was actually a developer, and Kelly was working with the town of Cochrane. And so reverse kind of rules, and we worked on the municipal development plan, sustainability, and a bunch of things. And later on in life, we reconnected again in working with the Calgary Regional Partnership on the land use policy section. And Kelly went on to have an amazing career with the partnership. And she was very instrumental in bringing together 13 communities in a very conflict area and trying to bring together regional districts and the city to come together to have a regional plan on how they would deal with sustainability, land development, infrastructure, and the policies of how they could all work together. So she has great experience in dealing with policy writing, community engagement, and her love of sustainability. So she's done an awful lot of work in sustainability as well. She is also very passionate about Revelstoke. She's a hiker and a skier and loves here and has frequent here very, very frequently. And she is joining us today. She's came in today, and I'd like Kelly to come up and introduce her. And
it's quite the intro. I just wanted to say hi and say a few words in terms of just what I'm hoping to bring to the table for this project. As Marianne said, I've worked at a municipal and regional scale for many, many years. And then I went into work for an environmental research institute for a few years as well. So I've got quite a varied background. And as mentioned, my passion is sustainability and complex thinking, systems thinking approaches to different projects. I hope to bring that to the table as well. So we are doing a kickoff meeting with stakeholders tomorrow, so I can just meet them, see what their thinking is, where their perspectives are at, and then we're going to design the engagement process after that once we start talking to them and just kind of keep things going and up to date. So really excited to be here. And I'm actually here on a family vacation right now. We came out from Canmore, so this has been great weather today. So yeah, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome, Kelly. Thanks for being here. And appreciate the fact that you're willing to work with us.
Yeah.
And also appreciate the fact that you're spending your money in our community.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great place to spend it, so thank you. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Good. Well, thanks, everyone, and we'll be kicking it off tomorrow, and we'll keep you regularly updated, but we're on the kickoff round right now.
Kickoff for Johnson Heights.
Yes. And the OCP stuff that's coming up. Yep.
Great.
Okay. Thanks,
Thanks, Marianne. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9A, staff reports, Parks and trails inspections and maintenance policy. Any delegations? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed right over the wayfinding delegation. My apologies. Andrew is here as project director. Ingrid, will you start us off?
Yes. So along with Tour de Revelstoke, we wanted to introduce Andrew Thompstone, one of the principal consultants of Cygnus Design. This project is a really interesting collaboration between the city and between tourism, which is why they take it longer with me. Because tourism branding, as you know, has been kicked off in the year, and it's a great brand, and we're looking for opportunities to work with them to promote that brand along with our corporate logo and look in our signage replacement. Funding for this project is going to be coming primarily from Resort Municipality Initiatives funding, and the funding for the strategy development is jointly City and Tourism Revelstoke, so it is a true partnership.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add in terms of the RMI funding, so that's all money that's been allocated towards tourism-specific infrastructure, so a lot of the signage you'll see is not being funded by any taxpayer dollars or anything like that. It's all through the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, the RMI fund.
So signage like entrance signs, skateboard park signs, all would be covered through the tourism infrastructure money, maybe not the signage for the public works yard, unless we want to have a tourism feature there. And then as well, the signage also stretches outside of town boundaries, right? We'll be putting up signage that is going to direct people to access Nordic trails, hiking trails, that kind of thing. So it is really a collaborative effort. And let Andrew take it away.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to run you through the process that we've gone through to date. Just a quick bio on myself. I've worked in the signage and wayfinding industry for about 15 years. I used to work as a fabricator, went everything through design up to sales. So I've been in the industry for quite a long time. And very excited to work on this project. Revelstoke has been just such an amazing place to visit. I haven't been here a lot before this trip, but certainly plan to make a lot more trips, specifically to your wonderful mountain resort. What I've got for you today is just a short presentation, just to get you up to speed on what we've done to date. Some of the project goals here, as Ingrid was saying, was to really take a comprehensive look at the existing signage that Revelstoke has right now, and start to put together a strategy and a plan for a new signage and wayfinding strategy. So we've gone through a bit of our own assessment of the project. So my colleague and I were up here for 4 days. At that time, we did a full citywide site audit, and that was basically touring the city and making an inventory of all the existing signs that you have to date. We also held 3 community workshops, one with city staff, one with other stakeholders, so Parks Canada, Revelstoke Mountain Resort. I believe there were a few others there. And then we tried to hold the community one. Unfortunately, it was on the night of one of the Raptors playoff games, so nobody showed up. I don't blame them. We also did an online survey, so we did have, I believe, about 57 responses from the online survey, and all of this helped to sort of shape some of the bits and pieces that I'm going to show you throughout this presentation. It was really great for us to spend some time here just to get to know the community itself, but also just to see the sign system, what's working and what's not working. And there's a lot of good in what you have right now, and there's lots of room for improvement as well. So we're looking to really make sure that what we create for you is a comprehensive approach. So through all the research that we did over the 4 days here, we developed what we call a recommendations report. This report was issued probably about a month ago. And within that report, what we had, and I'm just going to show you sort of bits and pieces of this, but it was our overall viewpoint of what's working, what we can improve on, and what the strategy would be. And so really looking at Revelstoke itself, part of the strategy here was using the colors that have sort of existed throughout right now, so the sort of red and burgundy color really seemed to be a predominant piece throughout the existing signage program. And we felt that that was something special, that something that would really tie the community together. Also considering the branding, so the existing City of Revelstoke brand as well as the new tourism brand, and how those two pieces can be integrated and work together. And that was part and parcel of the survey as well, finding what people liked from the existing City of Revelstoke brand. Also, introducing them to the tourism brand as well. And so we feel like there's a really great connection there. So part of this came out in the zoning strategies of how we're going to approach signage, how we're going to show different areas. And so where we came out to was two possibilities, and we haven't landed on either one of these yet. This is still under discussion. But essentially using either the red color as a core color for the downtown city, and that was one option. The second one was looking at using multiple colors, and again, these were pulled from some of the new branding as well. So really looking at the city center again as the red, and then trails and park systems around the city being identified in a green color. We did indicate Revelstoke Mountain Resort as well as the blue, and this is something that we're working through right now and will evolve as we move through the process. Consistency in any wayfinding program is key. We want to make sure that we build out a family of signs that are cohesive. We want to make sure that those signs are sustainable, that they're easy to update. We also want to make sure that we're creating language that makes it easy for people to find their way around. So this was our first attempt at looking at all the different destinations and just creating a quick hierarchy of what are the most important destinations, and we're looking at this sort of twofold. I mean, mostly from the point of view of a tourist, somebody coming here for a first time, trying to find a destination, but also for locals as well, and making sure that this program encompasses everybody who works and plays in Revelstoke. So this list is constantly evolving, and we're going to have more discussions about this tomorrow in terms of which destinations are the most important. But also looking at consistency in naming conventions, making sure that messages aren't too long, making sure that text on signs can be legible, is accessible, and is something that is very important in an overall wayfinding program, is just keeping that consistency. Some of our general observations while we were here, this is sort of a shorter version of the report. Revelstoke, again, has a lot of great features. I think the entry bear sculptures are something that I always remember from coming here probably about 10 years ago. They really stand out as a landmark, and it's something really special. Obviously, the bear has been incorporated into the City of Revelstoke logo as well. But we've noticed there's quite a few different bears that are being used on signage. I think we've got 3 shown there. There might have been 4 or 5 different types of bears. Some grizzly, some black bears. So that was one observation that we made. We'd certainly want to look to potentially standardize that. The bears came out as an item that is sort of unique to Revelstoke as a piece that speaks to Revelstoke itself. I think sign clutter was another piece that we really want to address. The more signs that we have in certain areas, and especially as you're driving into town, as you drive underneath the bridge there's a lot of different types of signs there. So we really want to look at trying to clean up the sign system, remove signs that are unnecessary, and only really have signs that are critical to making sure that wayfinding is easy. Along Victoria Drive, there's some great existing sign structures, and part of our recommendations that we're looking at is keeping those brick bases and reusing, taking off the top section of the sign. One thing that we noticed was that there's a mix of wayfinding and business advertising, and those two components we typically want to keep separated. There are ways that we can integrate that to a certain degree, but from a wayfinding standpoint, we want to make sure that any advertising, business advertising, is a separate piece from actually wayfinding. Lots of different colors and standards. Poor contrast was one thing that came up with the existing burgundy and the yellow. So that's something that we'll want to certainly improve on. And also just sign locations and sight lines as well. So the sign in the trees there is definitely something we want to avoid. Driving by the visitor center today, unfortunately that sign is completely hidden behind the trees. And that's a really critical sign to make sure that it's prominent. So these were just some of our general observations. The city itself, again, has got a lot going for it here, whether it's the skiing, just the really authentic downtown, hiking in the summer, and the history. I think the history is one piece that's really we want to pick up on and explore in this program. It's something that the tourism brand has really pulled from, so the Revelstoke word mark that's come from the old train station. So we feel like there's a great combination there of authenticity, adventure, and heritage. And these are the pieces that we really want to reflect in the Wayfinding program. So again, storytelling and consistency, the two brands and how we merge those components. So what came out of the online surveys and just some of the general comments that we got. The City of Revelstoke logo, people seem to like the burgundy and the red. It's something that they're used to. They like certain elements of it, such as the bear and the mountains. There were other elements of it that were a little bit of a mystery. The train front in the R and some of the other components versus the Tourism Revelstoke brand, again, sort of pulled from the old train station, so it's got a heritage piece to it. It's a little bit more clean, a little bit more modern. This is what we're sort of working with, but we want to incorporate certain elements from both to create a nice hybrid for the signage and wayfinding program. So working off of that, just looking at the various colors, again, sort of pulling a lot of these pieces from the tourism, the red itself, the green, and the Revelstoke blue. Trade Gothic was a font that we're looking at. Again, this does tie in with tourism. It's a great wayfinding font. Sans serif works really well. So these are some of the design standards that we're starting to build. Another piece that we're looking at that really makes signage and wayfinding unique is the materials that are used. And what we're proposing here is what we're calling truth to materials. So really using natural, organic materials, really trying to pull from the heritage piece. So there's some really great elements here. The brick, something like a Core-10 steel or a rusted piece. We could even use sort of rail ties or other components like that to bring the signage to life. We're looking at things like wood as well, but we're always keeping in mind definitely, again, the sustainability aspect of things and the overall maintenance of signs as well. And so what's nice about this with a material such as a Core-10 steel is that it's already sort of got a rusted look to it. It can't really get any worse than that. Obviously, looking at the pros and cons, I mean, Core-10 steel is a great material, but it also tends to leach. So, you might have some orangish snow underneath. So these are all considerations that we're working through now. And after the recommendations report, what we've just issued Monday, Tuesday of this week were some concepts and ideas about what the signage is actually going to look like. So that's encompassing a lot of the different components that I've showed you here. Where we usually start this process is just with a little bit of benchmarking, so looking at what other cities have done. And that was part of our workshop and presentation. So looking at other resort municipalities such as Whistler and Tofino, looking at places like Squamish that have done a new system lately, and then pulling some inspiration from other things that we've seen that we feel are an appropriate starting point and inspiration for where we're going. So where we're at today is starting to look at some ideas of what this sign program is going to look like. What we've developed here is 3 different concepts of what this signage could be. And we are going to start to work through with the overall working group in terms of trying to narrow this down to one concept. So this concept just quickly really sort of used a myriad of materials, really sort of playing with the mountain shape, having wood components for any of the trail or park systems, and having more of a cold rolled steel components and corten steel component for anything in the city. You can see here we've sort of played with a little bit of the color coding in terms of the greens for the park areas, the red for the downtown. This is the second concept that we've developed, really playing off the mountains and the views. So creating a little bit of negative space here on some of these pieces. Really looking at some social engagement pieces there on the far right. So things where people might come across where it's a great photo opportunity. And so we've really tried to sort of take a full look. Now this isn't the entire sign program. There will obviously be other bits and pieces, but this is where we like to start, is with some general ideas, and then we narrow it down from there. Third and last concept we've got here, really looking at overall addressing some of the heritage and the history. So pulling in some of the older materials, some old brick, having some banners that have some historical images on them, reusing the existing signs along Victoria Street, and integrating that color again in ways that is subtle and not too overpowering, but also making sure that people sort of understand when they see a certain color, they can associate that with an area. And so we felt those two colors were a good choice. To be honest, like one of the challenges with these two colors right now is it does become a little bit Christmassy when they're side by side with the red and the green. So that's something that we've tried to address here by really trying to keep those pieces separate. But it's something that's going to evolve. So again, this is something that we're going to review with the bigger group tomorrow. And then from here, we pick an idea, and certainly there's components from each of these concepts that could be integrated. So if there's some ideas, like really like sort of this negative space concept, that could be combined potentially with some other ones. Always a word of caution that we don't want to combine too many elements so that we get Frankensteins, but making sure that all parties and all stakeholders are happy with the overall approach. And really looking at this as an opportunity as well. So everything from how these signs are lit, how these signs are seen during the day, at night, taking in snow into consideration, so making sure that they don't get buried. All of these are factors at play as we're developing the sign program. Also looking at just some quicker urgencies. So the existing gateway signs right now, position-wise, are fantastic. Where they are located, we feel is in a great spot. But we've got a lot of old branding there. So looking at some simple solutions that are fairly cost-effective, so that some of these pieces can start to be transitioned now. And then if we want to go to a newer gateway sign, that's something that's a little bit more costly, takes a little bit more time to develop. So we're going to be working with the team to make sure that we put together an implementation plan and put together a budget for all the signs so that we know what all these components cost and what are the priorities for pushing things forward. And so our understanding was that there was a little bit of urgency to sort of get that new brand front and center before the winter ski season. So again, this is a temporary solution that we feel is a nice approach just to clean things up a little bit. Looking at some other pieces, just sort of outside of signage and wayfinding, really this entry component. You've got a wonderful welcome sign there right now. But looking at other places like Banff, Toronto, there's an opportunity here to have what I'll say is an Instagrammable moment. People love large letters. I don't know what it is about it, but it's certainly something that's a draw for people. It's a great way to, it's a great entry piece for your city. So this is something that we're considering, and we also want to be sensitive to some of the components that we're swapping out as well. And so that's part and parcel of the engagement process. Is making sure if that welcome sign does have some significance to it that we're addressing those pieces. Another opportunity that we saw through the process was the banners along Victoria Drive, and we're really looking at some opportunities there to integrate. I think one thing we've seen is the current banners right now are absolutely lovely. It's great to have that sort of local art piece, and really looking to sort of tie that together a little bit more with the overall wayfinding program so that we do have something more cohesive. And we've shown a few examples underneath there. Gastown, where our office is, has just done some really nice banners sort of in the middle bottom there. They've got some historical images that are ghosted in the background. I've used a white and red approach. I was just in Uculets last week, and they've also got a really nice banner program that really promotes local businesses and artists, but it's very cohesive in how it's been rolled out. So this is one of the pieces that we feel, and whether or not banners are used for wayfinding is another component that we're looking at as well. The signs along Victoria Drive are fantastic, but on a day like today, when you've got all the RVs parked along there, nobody driving can see what they say. So banners are another opportunity for us to engage and to really get the brand out there and create a cohesive wayfinding and signage approach. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and we're really excited to keep moving forward on this project.
Great, thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate after our initial meeting there today, what you guys have come up with. Some great ideas.
Great.
So we're excited.
Right.
Forward. So great. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Councillors, any comments?
Parks Canada, have they been talking to you?
We had Parks Canada as part of one of the committee meetings, and they had great input. We haven't, I don't know, Ingrid, are they coming tomorrow?
I don't think they're coming tomorrow.
Okay.
There is kind of a clear boundary between Parks Canada starts with their own signage and you can lead way to it.
Yep.
So I think it's fairly straightforward what's going to be done, but they'll be involved.
And they had some great suggestions in the first, they were actually the ones to say we might want to avoid wood. They've been through it before. They know the maintenance and the costs involved, and we love wood, but yeah, it can be a challenge in the bigger environment.
I mean, that is a miss where, the connection with town and Parks Canada and tourism and Parks Canada doesn't seem to be as strong as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there's some way to tie them closer together with the sign system, that's a win.
Yep, great.
Any further comments? Great. Thanks again. Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And now we'll move on to staff reports. It's always interesting when I screw up in the word. I look out into the staff and they're looking at me doing the headlights going, knowing full well that he screwed up. How do we get him back on track? I have two ladies, one on each side, that keep me in line when I do that. So, any presentation, Lori, regarding the trails and maintenance policy, or you're okay with us just putting things on the table?
I can provide a brief overview.
Sure, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Yep.
So basically, I prepared a policy that outlines what our current practice is right now for trails and park spaces. This is just, the policy is developed as an overall, just as a complement to our risk management strategy that we already have in place. And it just outlines the different parks infrastructure that we have and the frequency of inspections for those park spaces.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Council, anyone who would like to put the first proposal on the table? Council Brooksville.
The committee of the whole recommends council that the proposed parks and trails inspection and maintenance policy be adopted.
There's a second for that motion, Councillor Charlotte. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Donato. Ms. Wade, you're up next.
So I'm excited to bring this forward. This is something that the department has not done for a while, and this is a great opportunity to address amending the rezonings and the OCP with community engagement up front, which is also a requirement of the community charter, that there is community engagement prior to and above and beyond the public hearing process that is associated with an OCP and a zoning bylaw. So the applicant has come and met with city staff, and we've been working with the applicant on concepts and what I would call due diligence in regards to coordinating the constraints and opportunities map for these lands, so that they can go out into a community engagement process prior to bylaws coming before council. So the agenda today is to introduce the proposed development and to outline the proposed engagement process and review the proposed schedule and to receive comments from Committee of the Whole. So here's our context. The lands are up at Hay and Grizzly Road. They're approximately 3.8 hectares. Let me see if I can get the little laser beam on here. There we go. So there's the lands there. And then you're familiar, there's Nickel and Hay and then Grizzly Lane. And then these are the Mackenzie Village lands over here. So that gives you the context of the area. It is ROCP future growth. Part of the policies around future growth are that these lands are to be held for a secondary or a neighborhood plan as per OCP. So these lands actually fit into some of the policies that we have for the future growth, which is also promoting infill development in an area and using smart growth principles. The zone R1 is residential, so you can see in the surrounding area that we do have the R1 zoning in the area. So what the proposal is to look at a comprehensive development zone for these lands based upon an infill, mixed residential type and tenure. So the applicant has done some due diligence as far as demographics in Revelstoke and has tried to position the product type and tenure based on the understanding of the demographics, which fits into what we're looking at from a housing perspective. So the housing ranges there are 2,000 to 2,500 for a single family, duplexes at 1,800, and townhomes at 1,500 square feet, which is about a 3-bedroom townhouse unit. There's approximately 65 units, which is 17 units per acre or 7 units, which is well under our medium density within our zoning. So it is below medium density, but it is above low density because our definition of low density needs to be revised because it's basically 2 lots, which doesn't go in best practices with what we would define low density. So that's sort of the proposal and the aspects about the proposal. The site lies in the Arrow Heights neighborhood plan, and this is one of the 13 neighborhoods that has been identified in our OCP to move forward with neighborhood plans. So this proposal can act as a catalyst in looking at this area, the Arrow Heights neighborhood plan as well. So within this, the concept plan and the CD zonings, the policies that we need to look at is the diversity of the neighborhood and where it's located. So this, and promote infill that is sensitive to the surrounding areas, and to encourage the preservation of trees, and to improve pedestrian and vehicle access with existing roads. So building upon the current pedestrian vehicle transportation modes in the area. So there's 3 concepts that the applicant has been looking at, which has a mixture of housing. And what they've done is, you can see that this is there's R1 on this side, and then as it proceeds this way, which has got a bank on this side, they have put town townhouses along this side here and duplex, so that the density is going this way, which is sensitive to the surrounding single-family homes. And then they've looked at various combinations with parkland, trail connections, road. And they have also planned this around because they actually did do a tree survey to protect the mature trees. So they've actually looked at the mature trees and the siting of these development pods. So that helps us with understanding the constraints and opportunities with the development areas. So these concept plans are for discussion purposes, and these concept plans would be taken out to the neighborhood for discussion and input to get further refinement on it over the months of July and August. So, so these are not done in stone, but they are based on what I call constraints and opportunities. So they have some due diligence and coordinated land use analysis on these, which is a good baseline for moving forward. So what the applicants are proposing is that after the committee of whole today, that they would build a web page for communication, and they would notify the neighborhoods, and they would initiate community consultation meetings, with the first one being to actually work with the neighborhood and gather inputs, and then feed those inputs into a web page so that there'd be a central web page for communication to the neighborhood. And then moving forward, would have meetings to refine those plans with the neighborhood. And then once they're finalized, we would update the committee of the whole at our next committee of the whole meeting, August 15th, just to give you an idea of where we're at with responses on these concept plans and what does it look like moving forward with these concept plans. And then in September, there'd be a further refinement, because we'll have the feedback with the community on one plan that they would comment on. So we'll go from about 3 plans down to 1 plan, and then refine that, and then that would come forward in late September with first and second readings, and then it would go to a public hearing and follow the due process, and probably be wrapped up in November-ish, December, depending how things play out. So this is just a proposed engagement schedule. So staff's role at this beginning will be to help assist the applicant. The applicant will be leading the process. Staff will participate in the meetings and help with the applicant to make sure that our land use policies, our regulations are being adhered to, so that when we're having these conversations, the correct information is there at the meetings, but it'll be led by the actual applicant and their team. So here's the proposed engagement. They basically have identified at least 100 radius of the site. They've identified the neighbors they'd like to engage with. And this would, after today's meeting, they would reach out to this group and start the engagement process with them. This actually ties really nicely into Council's strategic goals for livability, to aspire for a high quality of life and a desirable and livable city for the citizens and visitors. It would help us with updating our official community plan, and it also helps with addressing housing needs and affordability. So this process fits well into what Council has put forward for their strategic goals. And the opportunity is that we can actually have engagement prior to bylaws coming forward to Council, get community engagement into the process, and have people participating in a collaborative manner as we move forward in this process. So I think this is a positive way of having the discussion about an infill project in an established neighborhood, and using the policies that have been in the OCP, and then we will use those to refine the OCP. And so the next steps would just be that staff will prepare the necessary reports for councils on each milestone, and we'll report back in, coming back to committee of the whole on August 15th with an update, and then coming in our usual council process. And so today we're seeking that staff initiate the proposed neighborhood consultation plan with the applicant. That's it.
Thanks, Marianne. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Purcell?
So it says in the report, or whatever you want to call it, the applicant is prepared to consider entering into a housing agreement to secure 50% of the town houses for rental at an affordable rate for a set period of time.
Yes.
So just curious, affordable rate is?
Well, that's where we've been talking with the applicant. They're within the townhouses. They'll take 50% and secure it to an affordable market rate, probably something similar to what CMHC and something would do. It's kind of what we've talked about, which is around 10% under the going market rate.
Yeah.
And then the remainder of the townhouses would be at the given market rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a set period of time. Is that
The housing agreements have various years. They could be like 8, 10, 12, this kind of something like that.
somewhere in that range
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, and I believe the city has not done one of these before, so that we will be looking to Thompstone to guide us on this and putting forward that agreement so that we have a model to use moving forward for other projects that would be like this. And we have a willing applicant who has actually been very concerned about housing in the neighborhood and is going to be holding those rental units. He sees that as, perpetuity basically as a commitment to the community. He understands the need for those 3-bedroom townhouses and understands the need for rental housing. And the other thing, just on that note too, is the sustainability. I forgot to mention that one of the other aspects of this is that the applicant wants to build towards passive housing, but is looking at step code 3 and 4. So this is another project where we can look at our step code and how we integrate that into building bylaw and zoning and OCP. So the applicant is very involved in the passive housing industry and sees this as a great opportunity to using those practices in this proposed project as well, which really helps us with our sustainability. And the other thing is that it also helps with the operational costs for households so that individuals aren't paying as high monthly utility fees, which will also help with affordability.
Okay, Councilor Shalit.
On that note, too, one of the presentations in SILCA was about the housing hub concept with BC Housing.
Okay, yes.
And it was really interesting to learn about some of the projects they've set up. And the projects they were showcasing as examples were quite large in Surrey and Lower Mainland, but it was around the idea of ownership. And I just found it really interesting how it introduced affordable home ownership for people who qualified. They would use the median income of the area, not a poverty level or anything like that, but the median income of that neighborhood to show who would qualify. But it also worked farther into the future because it could roll into the next buy without taking that housing off the market. I would just be curious whether there was any interest in that or any discussion on whether that would be suitable for it. Like I said, the projects they were showcasing were bigger projects, but it was just a really interesting concept. But
that is an interesting concept, and it's also a little bit along the lines of what the Whistler Housing Authority is doing as well. And we have had some conversations about that, but right now it's the commitment to rental housing. But that concept I can see coming forward with BC Housing and the Housing Hub and what's going to be happening with the Melbourne Bay school sites and all that. So I definitely see that coming.
Yeah.
And it's also a tool that I think we've been approached by many people about housing moving forward, and we would need to establish like a housing authority or something that we could actually use that would monitor the housing so you could purchase it, but it only is tied into the CPI. And so that's your increase, and then you qualify, and so, yeah.
And the other question I had was, how does this relate with the neighborhood planning going on in Johnson Heights? You were talking about how Arrow Heights has also been pegged as one of those neighborhoods. So is this going to be something that mirrors the Johnson Heights neighborhood planning, or is this just like a mini version that'll lead into that, or where does the overlap happen there?
So Johnson Heights is a slightly different format where we have 6 landowners coming together and working, and Kelly's going to be leading that engagement process. And we're going to be analyzing those land uses, how they all work together in the Johnson Heights neighborhood. project is part of the sub-area, which would be Upper Arrow Heights and then into the Arrow Heights. But what we do here can inform from the grassroots up to that neighborhood plan, and then we can evolve it into the neighborhood plan.
Right.
So they're similar.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a different initiative. One is housing, the other one is kind of mixed use.
Yeah.
With commercial, residential, tourists,
That's what I was kind of curious as to whether this was going to lead into something like that, or if it's just a stepping stone.
I see it as leading into the Arrow Heights
Okay,
neighborhood.
so that'll probably be the next one.
Yeah.
Kind of what we talked about leading into the OCP was multiple neighborhood plans will inform the OCP, and then our engagement process will be through that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think that's great. Any further comments, Ms. Wade?
No?
It's not, it's not specific. Vacation rentals and Airbnb would be allowed in this area, or
It's not something that
you want specific?
the applicant has put forward. And, I'm sure that's going to come up in the engagement process.
And the neighborhood, the majority of the people in that zone have big lots, septic field systems that are in place. This is a different mix where they're all tying into the city sewer system and water system. Do you think that would be a bit of something of concern or adjusting to?
I definitely will kick off our discussion about infrastructure and how we look at infrastructure, because if we're going to do housing infill, in order to make it affordable, we have to look at how we get it on the city systems, and we're going to have to consider that, and I'm sure I'll be talking with my colleague over there.
And that's the other thing. On the OCP, where do we see growth, or where do we see the opportunities to build housing? Do you want to put it more on the fringe, or whether the maintenance and the roads and the infrastructure are more financial commitment? Do you want to encourage it out there, or do you want to encourage it in the center? And that's a big decision on the OCP and town direction and those other things, and sustainability as well.
Exactly. And to your point, the infrastructure piece is really critical to the OCP as we move forward. So, and the other things we're looking at is looking at the land uses and latent demand, which is something that I've been dealing with too. So there's a bunch of things at play here. It's not just like this. It's more like we're doing this to get to this level.
And the last question is on the school system. Do you think it's capable? I guess that's part of the consultation and the reviews with the school system.
Yes, that would be part of the consultation. Yeah.
Any further questions, councilors? Thank you, Ms. Wade. We do have a motion on the table. If somebody wants to put that forward, Councilor Shaw.
The committee of the whole recommends the council staff initiate a proposed neighborhood consultation plan with the applicant.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Elliott. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wade. Moving on to communications, business license summary for June. Anyone have any questions or concerns about that? Seems every month we seem to be growing with business licenses, so it's nice to see that moving forward.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Someone was just asking me, do we charge late fees if people are late renewing their business licenses?
Your worship, yes, there would be a late fee because there's a specific time frame when you have to pay for your business license.
Yeah.
So if we go past that time frame, there is a late fee.
Did you go past?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was someone else, and they were like, I don't know. They apparently didn't get their renewal or lost it or something, and then they were like, oh, I should have paid. And they went in and they weren't charged one, but they weren't sure if it was because someone was being nice or if we just didn't have it.
Maybe your name will go retroactive.
Answer their fees. Good man, good friend.
All right, we'll move on to bylaw compliance summary. Anyone have any comments on that?
Lots of traffic. Yeah, it's hard for the course. There's parts there. Very busy.
it still always amazes me how busy and how people park, if only for a minute. This morning I was going into City Hall about 7:30 and there was a fellow parked on the yellow line straddling the sidewalk and whatnot, and he was there for probably 30 minutes and I'm going like, okay, where's my ticket book? Anyway, when you look at those sorts of things, it's things that make you go, I'm pleased with the bylaw enforcement, and there's some ups and downs as far as staffing in and out, that sort of thing, but they've been consistent, and I really appreciate what you've been doing there, Noah. So, any other comments on bylaw compliance? I have nothing else to discuss in this meeting and nothing else on the agenda, so I'm going to ask for the termination of the meeting. Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Brooks Hill, all those in favor? This meeting's terminated. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for being here today.